Hello viewers, once again I welcome you all. Presently you are watching my series on the history of British drama. So far you have watched a couple of videos on mystery and miracle plays, morality plays, followed by interludes. Now in this video, I would like to deal with the creative drama. A few critics also call it artistic drama. So let us see now how the British drama developed in the course of time. You have a very clear picture of mystery plays, miracle plays, morality plays, and in between you have the interludes. Now you will come across the full-length artistic plays which were created in the history of British drama. The English drama as a genre of literature and of course as a means of intrinsic and extrinsic expressions came into full flow only from the Elizabethan period. Of course, I'm talking about Elizabeth I. And with some inconsistency in the course of the last 500 years or so, this genre of literature is still liked and appreciated by the people of 20th century. In this video, you will come across the various phases of development of English drama, right from the English Renaissance till the 21st century. And the first aspect that I would like to touch upon is the English Renaissance. If you go back to the pages of the history, you will find that the English Renaissance was actually a cultural and artistic movement that started in England in the 16th century and continued almost till the early 17th century. This phase of Renaissance paved the way for the dominance of drama in England. In the regime of Queen Elizabeth I, great contributions in the realm of poetry and dramas can be seen. You have the renowned playwrights like William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, Ben Jonson, John Webster, and you have a big list of others, those who made huge contribution to the field of English drama. If you minutely study all these dramatists, those who are enlisted just before, adopted various themes like the history, comedy, tragedy, and so on and so on. So these are the various integral aspects of drama. And during the Renaissance, I would say most of the playwrights were specialized in only one of the themes. Like some writers were writing only the historical plays, some were committed only for the comedies, some wrote only the tragedies. Likewise, I am trying to tell. But if you see the emergence of William Shakespeare as a prominent and eminent dramatist, you will realize that his contribution to the field of drama is really making a big sense. As everyone agrees, he was a versatile artist who produced comedies, tragedies, history plays, and he touched upon all the other genres of literature which were very much in the air during the time. You have other prominent dramatists also of the same age. The dramatists like Robert Greene, Robert Nash, Thomas Lodge, George Peele, Thomas Kidd, John Webster. You cannot simply keep these names away from the discussion when you talk about the English Renaissance. But if you really see the artistic contributions by all these dramatists and the presence of a dramatist like William Shakespeare even today in the 21st century, I think that will let you know the significance and importance of William Shakespeare as a playwright. The four great tragedies written by William Shakespeare during the English Renaissance, as you know, the four great tragedies, Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, and the King Lear, these four have set a standard. In the artistic point of view, the kind of creativity, the kind of imagination which was induced by William Shakespeare in the plays was something really beyond the reach of his contemporaries. Moreover, if you go to the finer details of his thematic concerns, most of the themes that William Shakespeare adapted for writing are the universal values. These values were applicable during his own time in the Elizabethan period. And if at all you try to compare and contrast, these values are applicable even today. And you can go through any of the plays written by William Shakespeare. And that is why William Shakespeare is the brightest star of the Renaissance period. And no one will disagree with this kind of statement. And as a whole, when you talk about the phase of Renaissance in the development of English drama, definitely one can say that in the creative point of view, in the artistic point of view, this particular phase has been a landmark for the writers coming later on in the lateral phases of the development of drama. Now, I would like to switch over to the Jacobean period and the Restoration period. As you know very well, the Jacobean period is considered from 1625 to 1660, and immediately after the restoration of the monarch in 1660 to 1700 century, this period is considered to be the Restoration period. But I am trying to put these two phases together so that I will be able to justify my point also, that how English drama continued to develop in the further stages also. During the Jacobean period, as you know, the Puritans closed the English theatres in 1642. And this took place immediately after the Civil War. In fact, the English theatres were closed because of their own religious purposes and ideological reasons. The Puritans had their own religious purpose and their own ideological stand. And in order to protect these two, they closed the English theatres. However, the theatres in London were opened soon after the restoration of the British monarch, and that took place in 1660. Of course, with the support of Prince Charles II, the theatres continued to flourish in the century. The comedy of manners can be described as the glory of the Restoration period. And this period reflects the spirit of the stage, spirit of the age, and spirit of the people, and all these things are depicted by focusing on the manners of the society, and hence it is labeled as the comedy of manners. During the early 17th century, the native dramatic tradition also flourished, because the situation over there, the circumstances over there were very much helpful. The topical writing of the dramatist and the introduction of the professional female actors to the drama gained the attention of the audience, because till date, the female actresses were not allowed to perform. I mean to say, until then, all the female characters and their roles were played by the men. So in this period, the comedy of manners was, flourished like anything. And if you turn the pages of the history, you will find that the comedy of manners was fathered by George Etheridge, who wrote the plays like Love in a Tub, She Would If She Could, and the Sir Thuffling Flutter. These are some of the remarkable contributions of George Etheridge. Then you have a few more writers like Congreve, George Farquhar, Sir John Vanbrugh, and so on. they have also immensely contributed to the comedy of manners and kept the spirit of the people alive. The comedy of manners actually contributed a great deal to the field of English drama. But when I segregate this, I find it like the contribution is more to the comedy than to the historical plays or the tragedies. Because during this period, you find the more number of comedies were contributed by the writers. It means the playwright adopted the comedy of manners as a means of their expression. And of course, it entertained the audience of the time and it pleased them also. So the comedy of manners gave a realistic picture of the society, more particularly the contemporary society. But in the course of time, it shifted to the sense and sensibility. This shift from comedy of manners to the sense and sensibility was somewhat the ideal of the society. And that's why, in the course of time, it was replaced by wit, W-I-T, which proved to be dull, and then this form of drama was declined slowly and gradually. Then you come across another phase. As I said, I combined Jacobean period and the Restoration. Now I would like to talk in short about the Restoration period. The Restoration period that starts from 1660 to 1700 anatomy. So the Restoration period gave rise to the inclusion of new genres in drama, such as heroism and the Restoration comedy. See, these two things are very conspicuous in the respect of Restoration period. You have the dramatist like George Etheridge, who wrote The Man of Moor in 1676. William Wycherley, The Country Wife in 1676. Aphra Behn, The Rover in 1677. John Dryden, Aurangzeb in 1675. And All for Love by John Dryden again in 1677. And you have Thomas Otway also, who wrote Venice Preserved in 1682. And these are some of the most popular plays of the Restoration. If you talk about the thematic concerns and all, you find the reflection of the society. Sexual explicitness was the highlight of the comic plays during the Restoration period. Prince Charles II and the aristocratic ethos of his court encouraged such kind of plays during the period, and that actually started from the Restoration, that is in 1660 onwards, and that continued till 1685. So this particular period of 15 to 16 years is the most important period for the Restoration comedy and the plays which were mainly focusing on the heroism or the sexual explicitness. So this is how you can talk in general about the Jacobean period and the Restoration period. Now, I would like to talk on, in nutshell, about the 18th century drama. And here you have the Restoration comedy in England, as you know, started in the latter half of the 17th century. We discussed just before. But it faded away with the advent of the 18th century. The sentimental comedy originated during the period of the Bloodless Revolution, which took place in 1668. And since the revolution was against the aristocracy, it brought a radical change in the social importance of the middle class people. See now, the focus is shifted. It is shifted from the aristocratic to the middle class. And the middle class people looked at comedy of manners with some scorn and disgust. And as a result, the emergence of sentimental comedy, because they disliked comedy of manners, they disliked the Restoration comedy as well. More specifically, they were trying to shift the focus from the aristocratic to the common men and women of the society. And they have given much prominence to the sentimental aspects of the common people. The domestic tragedy and the sentimental comedy became the new flavor of the period, because the domestic tragedy and sentimental comedy was very much in the air. It was preferred, liked, and appreciated by the common people. Fair booth burskew and musical entertainments, which were preceded the English music hall, flourished during the period, suppressing the popularity of the legitimate English drama. There was a sympathy and pathos that came into comedy. Instead of making the audience laugh, they made tears roll down from their eyes. Thus, the sentimental comedy was a kind of reaction to the comedy of manners. And in this period, that is in the 18th century, this sentimental comedy properly established itself. So you have some of the major features of the sentimental comedy. If you really minutely study this, you will find that the revolt against the comedy of manners, lack of true spirit of comedy, third, the reformed sinners, fourth, the stock characters, fifth, the doctrine sensibility. And these are the major features of the sentimental comedy. The writers of the sentimental comedy, of course, contributed at a great deal to the field of comedy, no doubt about it. You have the dramatists like Hugh Kelly, Richard Cumberland, Edward Moore, Thomas Holcroft, and so on. And their contributions are considered to be the major contributions to the sentimental comedy. Hugh Kelly's False Delicacy and Richard Cumberland's The West Indian are the best examples of the sentimental comedy. In fact, so many references can be given in this respect. But now I would like to switch on to another important stage in the development of British drama. And that is the Victorian era. Actually, the Victorian era begins in the year 1837 and that is continued till 1901. You have the musical burlesques and common operas that actually competed with the plays written by Shakespeare during the Victorian era. Shakespeare contributed in the Elizabethan period. Musical burlesques and comic operas were written, but there was a kind of competition in the literary field, in the literary arena, and that can be seen during this period. In 1855, the German Reed Entertainments took efforts to give a boost to the musical theatre in Britain. Later in 1890, the first series of Edwardian musical comedies were introduced to the country. The improved transportation facility resulted in the movement of the audience, who could now afford to travel from place to place to find out the right theatres, even late in the night. The number of potential patrons of the English theatre saw a significant growth. And overall, as a result, plays started running for longer duration in the theatres. And that has really created the artistic sensibility in the mind of the people as well. In the course of the time, more number of people started coming to the theatres. It means the number of audience in the hall improved. This resulted in drama being a profit-making business, and the increase in the audience that resulted in the improvement in the production value of drama. So now the authors also started looking at it commercially. Theatre managers also became very professional, and the audience was increasing day after day. And that was the most, fertile period for the development of the place. The late Victorian era, if you see, you will find that the growing fame of W.S. Gilbert and Oscar Wilde, the leading poets and the dramatists of the period, they have also created a deep impact and influence on the mind of the audience. In addition, if you really go through the plays of Oscar Wilde, you will find that there was a close resemblance to those between or the plays written by the Edwardian dramatists, such as George Bernard Shaw, Henry Ibsen, and so on. Leading to the point that is Edwardian musical comedy that actually occupied the London stage until the First World War, when they were replaced by the increasing popularity of the American musical theatre and comedies. You have the authors like Newell Coward, Ivor Novello, and their contemporaries, those who soon replaced the Edwardian musical comedy also. So if you see, in a very short period of time, this sort of changes could be noticed in the realm of English drama. And then we move forward to the most prolific period that you call the modern drama, or else the modern phase of drama and the contemporary drama in the 21st century. As far as the 20th century drama is concerned, if you minutely study the phase of the First World War, you will find that the Western drama became more internationally unified and less the product of the separate national literary tradition. So this was a very important shift in the writing and development of drama. Throughout the country, realism, naturalism, symbolism, and the other concepts were being rapidly contributed. And with various combinations of these, continued to inform the important plays, and you have the plays written by a number of dramatists focusing on these concepts. One more important moment in the early 20th century was that of Expressionism. Expressionist playwrights tried to convey the dehumanizing aspect of the 20th century, technological society in particular, and through such devices as minimal scenery, telegraphic dialogues, talking machines, and the characters' portrayal, and they were the types rather than the individuals. So all these things could be minutely observed in the expressionist phase. Because the expressionist playwrights were carefully handling these devices as a means of their expression. The notable writers or the playwrights, those who contributed to the expressionist dramas, including the American writers like Elmer Rice, Eugene O'Neill, and so on. The 20th century also saw the revival of drama in verse, because for a long period of time, there was no contribution in the verse form. Although you have the writers like W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden, T.S. Eliot, Christopher Fry, Maxwell Anderson, those who produced very effective results by writing verse dramas, but that was no longer an important form of writing in England, especially during the modern period. The people were gradually getting detached from the verse drama as such. During the first half of the 20th century English drama, that was revitalized mainly through the works of two completely different playwrights. I'm saying two completely different playwrights. They were completely different in style, character, and personality. One is George Bernard Shaw, one of the greatest names in the 20th century British theatre. He was an Irishman who dominated the first half of the 20th century with the plays like Man and Superman, published in 1903, Pygmalion, 1912, and has long been recognized as a great playwright. He began his literary career as a critic, but later became a passionate advocate of the realistic plays of the Norwegian writer Henrik Ibsen. Then you have the authors like Newell Coward, who was an actor, singer, songwriter, playwright, whose flippant wit and outrageous behavior made him a successor to Oscar Wilde. His major plays are Hay Fever, 1925, Private Lives, 1930, Design for Living, 1933, Blitz Spirit, 1941, This Happy Breed, 1943, Nude with Violin, 1956. His musicals included Bittersweet, 1929, and his patriotic pieces included Cavalcade, 1931, which encapsulated the spirit of Britain in the 1940s in much the same way his early plays had done for the 1930s. So you have a plethora of writers, those who contributed to the field, and very much constantly they continued to write, and their contributions have also made a considerable change among the audience. Right? So you have the majority of musical dramas of the 20th century also, which were written by Andrew Lloyd Webster, who dominated the scene during the period. His works gained immense popularity in the course of time. Consequently, the dramas traveled to Broadway in New York and around the world. It was not the sole property of the England or the Great Britain. Some of them were turned into the feature films as well. And in the end of the 20th century, postmodernism had a serious effect on existence of English drama. However, a large number of theatres still exist around Shaftesbury Avenue in the western part of London. The Royal Shakespeare Company, operating from Stratford upon Avon, currently produces most of the plays written by the legendary dramatist, including William Shakespeare as well. During the second half of the 20th century, a very large number of significant playwrights appeared. And as it is possible that in the time to come, this will regard as something of a golden age for British drama. From the end of the Second World War and then onwards, a serious theatre was chiefly coming into Britain from America and giving a proper shape to the playwrights like Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, and the British theatre was still the subject to official censorship and was either amusing light entertainment or skillfully crafted but dealing with careful and safe subjects. But if you see in the lateral part, the impact of postmodernism brought a number of new young playwrights, those who were very much promising as far as their writing is concerned, and they gave a lot of prominence to the time and period book. Each one of them was pushing the boundaries imposed by the official censor. Throughout the 1950s, all these 10 years, I would say, all the manner of attempts to avoid censorship were tried, including turning theatre into private clubs for members only. And since then, gradually, the censorship rules were also relaxed by the contemporary courts. Then finally, in 1968, all the theatre censorship was abolished. And that gave the complete freedom to the writers and the managers of the theatres. And a new era in playwriting was born. However, the two outstanding figures of the British theatre throughout this time were Samuel Beckett and Harold Pinter. These two names cannot be omitted from discussion because Samuel Beckett is undoubtedly one of the most important and influential writers of the 20th century. A few critics say that he is the best known as the leading dramatist of the 1950s movement called the theatre of the absurd. Some of the contributions by Samuel Beckett are Waiting for Godot, 1953, Endgame, 1957, Kraft's Last Tape, 1958, Happy Days, 1961. Then you have another prominent personality that is Harold Printer, who is a unique amongst contemporary dramatists as a playwright, poet, actor, director, and a screenwriter. He was the most original, stylish, enigmatic writer in the post-war British theatre. His works have a profound influence on the fellow playwrights throughout the Western world, and his highly charged plays are held up as masterpieces of the 20th century. Some of the major contributions by Harold Printer are The Birthday Party, 1958, The Caretaker, 1960, The Dumb Waiter, 1960, The Homecoming, 1965, Old Times, 1971, and No Man's Land, 1975. So this is how you can have a complete review of the artistic drama that started from the period of the Renaissance in England, then onwards from your Elizabethan period, Jacobean period, Restoration period, then you have the 18th century drama, Victorian era, coming down to the modern period, having several phases within. So this way you can have a complete review of the history of British drama. So friends, we adhere such kind of huge, big, considerable contributions as our literary heritage. And here we are trying to talk on the development and the different stages of the history of British drama. So here I just put a comma because still there are so many authors, so many writers of the 21st century also yet to be discussed. So I put a pause and see you once again in another video that will focus on 21st century British drama. So thank you very much.